let's imagine, I invite you all to imagine that you have a business opportunity. And you are encouraged to make a significant investment, let's say around 80 or 90% of your wealth. And you really feel that it's your moment, it's your time. So you should go for it. And then there are two situations that you encounter. One situation, it's regarding an environment where you can invest in a country emerging from a civil war that has huge diplomatic crisis, somehow social inequality, and the government, it's kind of authoritarian, let's put it that way. Would you invest? Raise the hand those who would invest in this environment. Okay. Then you have another situation, situation B. And this situation, it's also where you find out that there's a strong party, there's clear leadership. You've seen that there has been an increase in foreign investments, and also you found out that there are huge opportunities, huge business opportunities. You know that that's your time also, so you're willing to invest in there. Would you invest in this kind of environment? Raise your hand, those who will invest. Okay. There are some that didn't raise their hands before, not even now, so probably they won't take any risk at all, no? Now, going forward, this is not only it. The business opportunity that you looked at, it's a business opportunity where you don't have any knowledge at all about the industry. In the industry that you're going to invest, is an industry that already has competitors in there, big competitors, so you will be the new kid on the block. And the third situation there, it's that you will be a foreigner, so you really don't understand what kind of dynamics are going on in that specific place. Under those circumstances, do you think it's insanity if you invest in there? Who would invest considering all these topics? Many of the new leaders, business leaders, the new entrepreneurs in many different sectors have done exactly that. But there's powerful forces around the decision. And the interesting part of it is that at the end, it's not A, not even B. It's the combination of both. And the story I'm going to talk about, it's basically that combination. Same country with these different situations. Now, you've put your money in that project. You decided to go forward. But then you started to look at certain things different. And you didn't even invest only 80% of your wealth. You invested 100% and even more, so you have debt. You're focused on that. And that specific business, even though it's growing, encounters expropriations, diplomatic crisis, huge inflation. The leadership of that country uh, as a whole, mismanages natural resources. So at the end, you have a lot of currency devaluations. How would you feel? Some would think, well, that's not the right thing to do. No way. It's better to invest just 5 years and get out of here, no? Well, in reality, for me, one of the topics, and I want to talk about, it's how I view the businessmen, the entrepreneurs, the guys that really want to do things and move forward, even though there are certain odds against them. While visiting with my family, my two oldest daughters are here with me today. When we visited Andy's Warhol exhibition in Milan last year, it's kind of interesting, no? The way he looked at life in many circumstances. But it came to my attention that in certain walls, there were different quotes of Andy referring to different situations that he lived or his own philosophy. And one that really grabbed my attention was this one. Making money is art, and working is art, and good business is the best art. When we think about it, sometimes what we see after many years of someone coming to a business or doing certain business or being so successful, we forget that this specific person probably looked at a rock, just a rock. But behind that rock, he saw a masterpiece. And business, it's all about art. You have to deal with many things. You have to get really prepared to do things, and you really have to focus. Now, the brief story I'm sharing with you happened in one country. Based on the circumstances or alternatives A and B that I shared with you, probably you would focus, or you have focused different countries in the same Latin America. Haven't you? You can think about all these situations all over the place. Well, this specific story, it's about Mexico. But that's not that bad. I mean, Mexico, what is Mexico today? Mexico today, it's a country where we have more than 30 free trade agreements. Mexico today, it's in a strategic location, no, with balanced demographies, and with huge business opportunities. Now, probably some of you recall 1st of January 1994, the start of when the NAFTA started in Mexico. With that in mind, what happened really to our country, to the business community, to the politics in our country, to the unions? It's that we had to change our chip. We are now going to be more globalized in many ways, but we were competing for a market that was just neighboring us, next door. So you started to see many companies willing to invest in the US. You start seeing many companies doing businesses not only with Canada and the US, but also making businesses with those that own the technology. You started to see many companies creating benchmarks to be more productive and to be even better than what they have been in the past. So at the end, competition and that great opportunity gave us that platform to think in the future. But yes, there are a lot of challenges. There are not places where you can find everything. There are not places where you don't have to face any risks. And now, sharing with you this chart, which is basically the World Investment Prospectus Survey of last year. Among the top, here shows 17 economies, but among the top 17, there are only 3 countries from the Americas and 2 from Latin America. Mexico is among those 2. The ones that referred this survey, it's Brazil and it's Mexico. And this survey, it's basically the responses received by more than 160 companies, global companies, when they were asked which places, which countries would you put your money in? These are the responses. Now, this is a funny chart, but when we talk also about businesses and how far we can go ahead with them, a guy most of you will know, Warren Buffett, mentions that someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree long time ago. Now, saying that, isn't it true that growth, performance, reduction of inequality comes within time? Isn't it true that your present situation is determined on what happened in the past, but the future will depend on what you do today? The brief story I'm going to talk about, it's a story of a Mexican company that over 90 years was focused on one single idea, trying to be the best, and trying it every single day. Grupo Modelo, after 90 years, come up to be the 7th largest brewer, the first exporter of beer worldwide, considering the same source, meaning that we only produced beer in Mexico to be present in 180 countries, more than 180 countries. And among our portfolio of brands, which was not so big, but we have 2 big brands that were valued as top in the industry. The chart that, I don't know, probably it's too far away, but I'm trying to put here, it's a chart where the foreign investment is measured each quarter for those years. The big hike in the 3rd quarter of 2013, it's referring to the foreign investment done in Mexico after we sold our company. This came up to be the biggest transaction ever in the story of the country. On Tuesday, the Ministry of Economy released the figures for the last quarter of 2014, and the foreign investment in Mexico reached $22 billion. In 2013, that figure came up to be $42 billion. So the difference was mainly this single transaction. Why? A company as Anheuser-Busch InBev will be willing to invest in a country that amount of money. Something they're seeing, something that probably for us generates certain concerns, but at the end they are taking the risk. Once our former chairman, the one that Don Antonino, who I succeeded in 2007, mentioned to me, Mexico is an unstoppable country. Mexico is unstoppable. And the only thing I regret is that I won't be able to see it become one of the top 10 economies in the world. He's now 97, so he's making his, he's trying to see that, but at the end, he was convinced, and the person before him, Don Pablo, the same. Let me share with you that when we kind of reached the agreement, it was kind of a mixed feeling. First, kind of selling a company that was founded by my uncle, great uncle. Second, basically because I had been working for that company for almost 30 years, 16 of those as CEO and 7 as chairman. And you really get attached to those things. I mean, it's, you kind of feel it in your blood. But at the end, it was sad on that part of the equation. But on the other side, it's that you accomplished one of the key points here, which is your fiduciary duty to create the most value possible for your shareholders. Today, we have the foreign investment in our country from 2000 to 2014, and which are the main countries that have been investing in that same period of time. As you can see, the United States, almost $170 billion, and some others. I mean, Spain is heavy on that, but, Canada and so on. But what has happened in the last year or so is that European countries, led especially by Spain, are really investing a lot in our country, especially in the sector of tourism. You can see a lot of investments going on there in resorts, hotels, and so on. And they are looking really on what's going to happen in the future, and what it's going to happen in the future, it's still growth, and it's still, evidently, more development. When we talk about goals, is either you want to do it or you don't. And Henry Ford, see, it's pretty simple, no? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. I'm not gonna discuss. You want to do it or you don't want to do it. And evidently, if we come to that thought about whether we want to go forward or not, if we want to see only the problems and not really the huge opportunities, then probably you shouldn't be thinking about doing anything. Who is free of any risks? You can go out of your house and probably a dog bites you, or probably you go and jog and you ruined your ankle. Yes, there are risks on doing anything. Specifically, when you're talking about businesses, because businesses are a different thing. Businesses need focus, businesses need teamwork, businesses need many, many other things that are not only what you're thinking in that specific moment. You need hard work, you need attitude, practice, patience. Today, I'm kind of impressed sometimes when everyone thinks that making money it's easy. And it's pretty, I mean, you can do money very fast. Yeah, as fast as you do it, you lose it. You don't value the whatever you have if it doesn't have any suffering or sweating or thinking or certain nights of with your eye open. Whenever you think about the successes we have seen in Latin American companies, those companies that today are conquering many markets, many continents, their development has been huge in the last 10, 15 years. And I can mention here just a couple, Bimbo, Cemex, Ambev. So at the end, Latin America, it's full of myths and facts. Myths about Latin America. It's Latin American companies have lower productivity because it's part of their idiosyncrasy. Or most of the good companies are family-run companies and they are not productive. Those are myths, facts. Productivity has grown every single year since we started considering all the global needs in the region. Benchmarks, productivity, political reforms, democracy. Probably we will talk about differences in many ways, but to be quite honest, Latin American companies have had a huge increase in their presence worldwide. Most of these Latin American companies have been buying out or through mergers and acquisitions, some other competitors. And about the family businesses, no? Professor Ernesto Poza from the Thunderbird University, and he's a member of, with John Davis of this Cambridge Family Enterprise Group. Some time ago, he mentioned to me, well, family-controlled businesses obtained better results than the pan-European Dow Jones stock index of around 8% compound annual growth rate in the period that goes from 1997 to 2006. In Chile, for instance, a study from Martinez and Stroh in 2005 showed that from a universe of 175 companies, family-owned, 175 companies listed in the Bolsa del Comercio, 100 of them were run by families and obtained considerable better returns in assets and in equity than the others. Passion is part of that. Now, I'm gonna go a little bit faster on this, but when we talk about challenges, yeah, there's a social gap, and I will refer to that. There are certain issues with the political institutions, about the economies, and the integration that is needed in the region. But most of the inequality we see in the region is a response of the fast development that it's going on. George Freeman, that probably most of you have read, says specifically, inequality does not mean lack of development. Instead, it is the inevitable byproduct of development. And I agree with that. When we talk about risks, there's an extraordinary analysis made by World Economic Forum. Every single year, global risk report comes out. This year, in January, in Davos, came up this one. I invite you to look at it. It's just in the web. So there are many things, many circumstances, many interactions with the risks going on there. And you can talk about any one of those. And you can refer specifically if you want to open those different risks in different regions. But for instance, even though they are the same risks, they are not the same, they don't have the same weight in each one of the countries. Wow. Again, I will refer to another quote from Mr. Freeman in his book, The Next 100 Years. He says that we are deeply constrained in what we do by the time and the place in which we live. He's precisely right. Mexico. Yes, there are challenges that we're facing. And why Mexico has grown so little then if there's so much things going on? First, the oil prices. Last 8 years, it has been terrible for Pemex. With steep production of oil, we have been quite dependent on the US economy, and we have also had a big reduction in public investment. About oil prices, it has been gone down almost 50%. And if we see this chart on the right, production, it's going down, and the investment in exploration and production, it's going up. So there's an inefficiency there. Mainly all those investments that accounted in 2013 for almost $23 billion were done by Pemex. So the energy reform was a thing of living or dying for our country. It was needed. What about the US economy? This chart is impressive, and it's when we talk about, for instance, the crisis that we had, or the US economy had in 1980, we see basically that it took almost 10 months to recover. When we talk about the one in 2001, it took almost 40 months. When we talk about the crisis that started in 2008, that we start to look that it's going now on the recovery side, it took almost 75 months. Those 75 months really had a hit also in Mexico. But Mexico is somehow recovering, for instance, in consumption. The drop we have here from 2013 to 2014, it's basically the fiscal reform. But now we're coming back. What about the consumer confidence? Consumer confidence dropped during the crisis and started to move forward. Then drop again with the fiscal reform, again it's recovering. But there's another ingredient in our economy that we should consider. Most times, when we talk about foreign investments, we think that that's the thing that keeps the economies going in certain countries. In the case of Mexico, don't forget remittances. All those Mexicans that are living in the US and are bringing their money back to Mexico to their families. And that accounts of several $billion. So, positives about Mexico: increased productivity, the energy and telecommunication reforms. And let me just state the following. We didn't only had these reforms, we had 7 reforms since Presidente Peña became the president of our country. 7 different reforms. All of those focused on developing the country. As a matter of fact, yes, we do have challenges, there are certain risks on doing that, but he's moving forward. And the US economy, which has been showing amazing growth. Last year growth, the last quarter growth, the projections for this year growth. That means for us that the exports are going to keep on going from Mexico to the US. We show here basically what's going on with cars. No, it's the yellow line. It's picking up. Manufacturers doing the same, others doing the same, picking up. If the economy in the US starts moving strongly as it is, and what we project it will continue, Mexico will face a new stage of growth. Just 2 slides more. Yeah, part of the challenges that capture most of the headlines, it's what about violence and insecurity. And for this, I can only share with you what I've seen and what I understand it's going on. First, we have this implementation of judicial reform and oral trials, the new restructure on the prison system, and renewal of the police force. It's not easy, it's difficult, but they are facing it and they are moving forward. So, for last considerations, when talking about our Latin America region, don't gamble, study and reach local knowledge, always consider at least 10 years investment horizon, create your team of champions, and basically, the final statement is that there is no recipe for business success. There is always risk in any decision we take. And Latin America today represents a great region for invest, for those who dare. My question will be, do you dare? And just a quote, life is a constant lesson where decisions need to be made. You'll excel if whatever you do is right. Not talking about left or right on partidism, right or wrong. If you do is right and it's done with pride, passion, and commitment. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlos. We now have 10 minutes for Q&As.
Sir, thank you very much for the presentation. That was very interesting. My name is Tarek, and I work for a French bank here in London. The question as I have for you is, from a macro perspective, we are living in a changing paradigm in which, a lot of industries, the one you mentioned, automotive, even the brewing industry, are becoming less labor-intensive and more about knowledge and innovation. How do you think, well, Mexico in a particular point, but the overall Latin American economies and companies are reacting to this shift toward a knowledge-based economy?
Thank you, Tarek. Well, I think one of the key things that we will look when facing all these trends, it's labor cost. Today we have, I would say, the knowledge, the capabilities, and the capital. And the labor cost today in our region, the whole region, it's quite competitive. So when you talk about all this knowledge and new technologies, robotics and so on for certain productions, let me share with you the following. When we invested in our latest brewery, when we invested in our latest brewery, which was in Coahuila, northern part of Mexico, we put in there $600 million, and we wanted the best technology all over the place. So we grabbed everything that will make us feel that probably with the automatization, we will have only, or I don't know, 1,000 people working to produce almost 15 million hectoliters. So that's a big gap considering some other productions and benchmarks in the industry. The challenge was, what was the return on that investment? And today I believe that we do have the opportunity to invest in better technology, but the labor cost and the capabilities of our people are much better today considering all the other options. So again, I think, yeah, it will come a time where you will have a better GDP per capita, and that would be a challenge. For today, I think we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. I have a question regarding your view on the reforms made by Mexico, taking into the fact that it happened in Mexico, also in Chile, the country where I am from, that you see in almost every sector a very high concentration of companies. So these reforms, I guess, they aim to basically encourage more competitiveness. What do you think are the challenges to do more and basically to incentivize like small entrepreneurs to come forward and dare?
I think one of the things that happened to Mexico was, again, the NAFTA agreement, no? Where everyone was shaked. Everyone likes the status quo, no? And there are many that don't like change, when change is the only constant, it's said, no? But at the end, there are many Latin American countries that are still heading on protectionism as a way of development. And I do believe that it's on the contrary. They have to open to have more competition and to also invite more investments in their countries. So what happened, I'm talking again about Mexico, with this NAFTA trade, with the trade agreement, North American Free Trade Agreement, what happened there is that basically we needed to be more competitive. And since we didn't have any more those laws or those tariffs or certain fees that kind of helped us doing business in our country, when those things disappeared, we needed to be the best or trying to do the best. And I think one of the things that should be done is get rid of protectionism and start thinking about opening more their economies. That's what I would say.
Hi, so you mentioned violence and insecurity presenting one of the challenges to growth of businesses in Mexico. What's your opinion on what kind of measures need to be taken going forward in order to tackle, for example, big transnational crime organizations in Mexico and how they affect business? I know that in the oil industry there's a lot of problems with pipelines being tapped and things like that. Just be interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think the steps that are taken by the government are the steps that, based on my knowledge, you know, sometimes you don't really understand what's going on in the depths of certain situations or how the organized crime does things. But at the end, I think that the steps that had been taken are the right steps. Probably we need a little more speed on the results of those steps. And probably that's something that everyone wants to see, no? but it will take time. The problems in most of our countries, because it's not only Mexico that has these such of problems, it's that sometimes you see there's a problem, but you know there's a problem, but you don't want to see it, and until it's too big. And probably that's what happened in the past. We knew there was a problem, and we didn't put the attention we needed. Today, well, I would say that from the last 8 years, things have been taken care of. Probably we don't agree on the measures, on the ways it has been done. Again, I don't have all the information, but basically I believe that the decisions based on those that make the decisions were the ones that feel that was the right thing to do. On the future, I think that we're lucky, and I want to say this, that we have an institution as the Army and the Marines, which are doing a great job. When I was CEO of Modelo, we had different issues in many regions of the country, and the Army was the one that made things right.
Hi, hello. My name is Fernando from Manchester Business School. I'm from Mexico. And I would like to know if you can tell us about how you built Corona as one of the most successful brands in the world, or what was the formula of success to make Corona well known all in the world.
Thank you, Fernando. Well, it's I think it was, as Warren Buffett states, probably it's part of the job done by many generations that the incomers or the new generations kind of get and try to develop. But it's the product of many years of working. And based on Corona, I would say that it was hard work, good product, and lots of luck. Because we came to an interaction when we started to grow as we did, and that interaction was the popularity that the Mexican food gained in the US. Then we had the baby boomers that wanted to change their products that used to be consumed by their parents, and they wanted a new thing. And we were fortunate that the mix about Mexican products and that many baby boomers looked at our brand, that they liked it. They kind of felt that it was different, that what they were used to, and we helped them out. We handed all the beer they wanted. So there were times during the 80s, I was in the bottling shop in the brewery in Mexico City. I was in charge of one of the bottling lines. And I got really mad every single week when I received the programs of production, because probably on Monday they were telling us that they will be needing 200,000 cases of beer, and next change it will be 250, which means almost I don't know, it's a double, 20% increase. But the next month, when you deal with the suppliers, you keep on asking them so much that everyone got really crazy. And that's when I believe when sales and production become kind of looked as the enemies, no? Sales want to sell as much as they can, and production wants everything in line. It's full of engineers. What do you expect with engineers? No, they want everything just in their scheme with programs and everything. So I believe really that we had a good strategy after we saw that the product was well received. It was developed and it was taken care of. And at the end, we had also certain competitors that help us out. Just as a final comment on that question specifically, I remember that we didn't invest anything in mass media. No TV commercials, no radio, and our growth rate during those years were almost 60% growth, 60, with no media. Until some of our competitors looked at us and said, we have a problem. This dwarf is getting bigger, and we have to stop their growth. And they started to criticize us and to block us with the distributors, which, matter of fact, they made more money with our products than with the products were sold by others. So at the end, we started to have publicity sponsored by our competitors. And then we decided to go to TV. We came up with our first commercial on TV, which was just a boat with the waves. Probably some of you will recall that. And there was a Corona bottle standing up and another rolling, depending on the bouncing of the ship. And no noise, just the waves, and just saying, Corona, what you see is what you get. And that was the starting point of the new era. Thank you, Fernando.
We can get one last question.
Hi, Carlos. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wanted to see if you could share with us sort of what was the most challenging part from a personal perspective of the acquisition with Anheuser-Busch InBev.
What was the most challenging situation? Well, I already kind of shared with you what was my feeling about it, no? Sadness in some way. On the other one, it was a kind of a joy, mixed feelings. But on the operation side, I will address that. Imagine you have, during that time we were all around 30,000 people working in the company. And they know you're the CEO of the company, the chairman of the company. But you announce that you're going to sell and you're not going to stay in that post. Then you start thinking about whether I'm going to put attention to what he's demanding or not. So I thought this was going to take only a few months, not more than a year, with all the Federal Trade Commission and things that we have to deal with, the DOJ and so on, which I agree, they have to do their job. But I thought it was going to be a pretty fast transition, but it took longer. So the challenge here was keeping all the people involved in their activities, the strategy of the company, and to kind of accomplish the budget we have in place. Since we didn't knew that the transaction was going to pass, because it was only depending on what was the ruling of the DOJ, many people still wanted to kind of keep on going, but many didn't. Or many just lost their momentum or enthusiasm. So I would say leading on those circumstances was the most challenging time of my professional life.
Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you very much.